Hi. So I'm going to answer Jonathan Garfinkle's questions from Lower Canada College. His first question is, what do I think my position on bottled water is? And I would say that I think bottled water can have a use, but I think that it's a lot of people just take it for granted. I think a lot of people really are buying it for convenience because they're out and about and they didn't think to bring their own water bottle. And I think it's okay to have a product like that available for convenience, but I think consumers should give more thought about why they're really buying it. If you really want it for the convenience, that's one thing, but I think if you give a little thought to bring a bottle with you, you're going to save a lot of money and you're going to be just as healthy for the most part. Where I think bottled water gets in trouble for consumers is that people assume that it's healthier, they assume that it's somehow environmentally friendly, um, when it isn't necessarily. So I think that consumers should be a little educated, and if they really want water for the convenience, or certainly bottled water has important uses for, say, after disasters and things like that. I think I think it should certainly be available to consumers. But on the other hand, I do generally support initiatives to uh, quote unquote ban bottled water from certain places. Basically, like I'm skeptical that taxpayer money should be buying bottled water for public employees when they have tap water available, because I don't necessarily I don't support a ban outright for consumers, but I think it's fine if taxpayers want to decide that they don't want to pay for it for offices for public workers when they have tap water available. So I think that just shows where consumers kind of need to go. So let's do question two. What makes tap water a better choice? Um, well, half of bottled water is tap water, uh, according to studies that I looked at and writing about it for the environmental magazine. Uh, so in that half of bottled water that is tap water, some of it has a little bit of additional filtering treatment, but a lot of it does not. So right there, you're looking at the same thing, and the technically in the United States, the I believe it's similar in Canada. I don't know quite as much about it, but technically the regulatory tap water is much more highly regulated than bottled water. When I was looking at bottled water in the States, the FDA has the ability to ask for tests on uh, water that's bottled. I believe they could do it only as little as once a year. The tests are done by whatever lab the bottler chooses, and the data they only have to keep for a year or two. Uh, Contrast that with tap water, which has strict regulations in the U.S. where it has to be constantly tested. In some cases, I think it has to be tested many times a day. It certainly has to be tested many times around the year. And there's strict standards for what types of labs can do the testing. They have to be accredited labs. I think there's a layer of labs have to be independent, and the data is all publicly available, so you can see exactly what's in it. As a consumer, there's no legal right for you to see what's in bottled water in terms of the concentrations of minerals, whatever toxins might be in there. The FDA can ask for a list, and the company's supposed to give it to them. They do not have to give it to consumers, and it's again they don't have to keep the lists for very long, and the lists are the data is taken by whatever lab the company wants. So you're actually, as a consumer, you're much more likely to have water that's independently verified as safe if you have tap. So that's one of the big concerns. So also, I did want to mention the price. Uh, in the article I wrote for eMagazine, I did a little bit of back the envelope calculations where bottled water is a lot more expensive than gasoline. Uh, I'm not really sure why that should be, being that gasoline is much more highly processed than water. If you're assuming that most bottled water does come from groundwater, so yeah, it has to be uh, pumped from the ground. Typically, aquifers are much closer to the surface, much easier to get at than oil reservoirs. So why is it so much more expensive? I think that's a question that people should ask. Certainly, it's several thousand times more expensive than what you could get from the tap, in the developed world, at least. And certainly in the developing world, it's providing people with water they need daily. That would be pretty expensive to provide with bottles. So that's probably not going to be a good long-term solution either. So I think when you look at is it healthier? In most cases, no. Sure, there's always some examples of a local town that is having an issue with their water, uh, and people might choose bottled one, in that case. But I think that the town, uh, I think they would do well to ask why aren't we having good water, and to try to get that fixed as soon as possible, rather than necessarily relying on bottled water. I think for a short gap, sure, it's fine. Uh, so I think people need to ask why are they buying it. If it's just for convenience because they forgot to bring a bottle, okay, that's fine. But are they buying it because they think it's better implicitly? Well, I think they should look at that assumption and see, is it really healthier than the tap water that you could otherwise get? If not, then that's something you should ask yourself. Moving on, you ask, what would you say successful water bottle companies are blinded by profits, not worried about the damage? Um, it's definitely a general statement. I, I'm not sure. I'm trying to think about specific companies I've interviewed. Um, I would say that I was a little frustrated studying the industry as a whole, in that if you look at their actual marketing materials and their advertising campaigns, they do typically imply that bottled water is healthier. Uh, their they, their guidelines of the International Bottled Water Association, at least as I looked at them at the time, were that they do not say that their water is healthier than tap. So maybe they're not doing it explicitly, but yes, when they are marketing something with pictures of glaciers and pristine, and they're using words like uh, crystal clear, things like that, they certainly want you to think that it's somehow very pure and healthy. And one of the things they're very quick to point out on their own is that, oh, it's healthier than soft drinks. Um, I, as a journalist investigating this, I thought that was a false flag argument, because to me, I was really comparing it with tap water. As a consumer, that's what in deciding whether I want to buy bottled water or not, I would consider it versus tap water. They say that people don't really do that. They say they don't like that. They say that in fact, a spokesperson told me that they never even suggested that it should be a replacement for tap water. They say it should be a replacement for sugary sodas, high fat drinks that you'd buy. I mean, if you're looking at the consumer decision at a supermarket, and then they're looking at the aisles, and Coke, coffee, and bottled water, okay, maybe. But I think that that's kind of an odd argument, because why would you pay so much money when you can just walk around to the next aisle and turn on the tap, or bring your own bottle with water that you get for free. And this goes back to the idea of convenience again, uh, which is fine if people want to spend their money on convenience. That's fine. I think that they can do that, but I think they need to ask themselves why they're really doing it, and not just because other people are doing it, because they saw the marketing campaigns. The other thing is that there is a significant environmental impact of the industry. It's something that's the reason I looked at in the first place. Uh, yes, it's a lot less than oil or a lot of other things. It certainly wouldn't make probably not even my top 50 industries that you need to look at for the environment. So I think it's important to keep that in perspective for sure. But you know, if the reason you're buying it is just convenience, uh, why not go a little greener and drink from the tap? For our major water bottle companies think of new ways to reduce the consequences that poses on the environment? Yes, definitely. There's been a lot of initiatives to increase the recycled content of plastic bottles, to make the bottles lighter so they require less shipping. There is some initiatives to provide more local, regional sourcing of bottled water, and to reduce on shipping. And I think all those things are really good. It shows that the industry is open to the the impact that it has on the environment. there's been a number of debates in local communities where uh, people are afraid that a bottler will draw down their aquifers. There's been some charges in specific cases where people have said that that has happened. The cases that I looked at, the bottling company fired back saying, with their geologists saying that no, there was unrelated events. Uh, those kinds of hydrogeology questions are often hard to sort out. But I think there's more attention being paid to that, in part because of some of the negative publicity. Yes, which companies are doing the most damage? I certainly couldn't say on a large scale. I know that a lot of environmentalists in the last few years have targeted Fiji water, that brand, which comes from the island of Fiji. I think one of the big complaints people had originally is that that's very far away from North America, so why would you pay so much to ship water that far? In addition, there has been some articles about what's been happening on Fiji Island itself, so that's something to look at. I know that the company has made some detailed responses, so that's one thing to look at. Uh, I know that there was a class action lawsuit filed against Poland Spring in the northeast of the United States, saying that the marketing of the sources as being pristine streams was misleading. There were claims about at least one well that was in a parking lot of what some person called a industrial facility. I'm not sure exactly how that was resolved. And there's also in Texas, I know there's been local movements of people who said that when the bottler moved to town, their wells went dry, and I know there was a back and forth about that. So there's been some specific. Also in there's been I know a little bit about complaints of a Coke-owned uh, plant in India where locals said that the plant was taking water away that they needed for other things. I know that Coke denied that, but I'm not sure exactly what the latest is on that. Uh, but using a water purifier, does this make the water risk-free? Well, certainly there's no such thing as risk-free. I think that using a good purifier filter can be a really good option. It's definitely something that I do personally. Um, and I certainly think it's fair. The industry disagrees that it's a fair comparison, but I think as a consumer, I think it's fair to consider purified water over bottled water. I think it's much cheaper for you, and I think you can still get a great taste, and you can get water that's even safer. So it's good to get there's tons of different filter technologies, purifiers out there. It's good to get something that has good reviews and good consumer reviews, and you can look for certifications from groups like NSF and just different country standards. But the I think whole house filters are a really good option, and in bottle filters are okay. Just the one thing with filters is to make sure that you change them as recommended, and ideally uh, the filter medium should be disposed of as if it were hazardous waste in case it did collect small amounts of metals or whatever might possibly be in the water. But in general, I think filtering is a great thing to do. Are there benefits to bottled water over tap? Uh, Convenience. I mean, I carry a bottle in my backpack all the time, so I usually am almost nowhere without tap water. At home, I have a whole house filter, so I just use that. And I think it tastes great. It doesn't taste like chlorine. So for me, it's rare that I have to buy bottled water. Occasionally, if I don't have my bottle, uh, or very occasionally, if I'm even have my bottle, I'm out of water and there is no way to fill it. I live in New York City, and actually, there's a good program where a large number of merchants have banded together to let you fill or to fill up a water bottle you bring in with tap water, and you don't have to make a purchase even. I think that's great. I think more businesses should build goodwill by offering that, and I think that Elizabeth Reut, who's a colleague of mine, has in her book, I think it's called Bottle Mania, and she talks about the movement to revitalize, protect,